In Misumai Youshin's class, he had no friends. His hobbies were mobile gaming and working out, while his classmates created plans without considering individuals like him. He wasn't bullied though. He was an introvert just like us, and he had nothing in common with them. They talked about going to karaoke when Youshin was about to leave the class. While he was getting his shoes from his locker, he wondered how many event quests he could complete. He then noticed that he left his pencil case. In the class, the girls were playing a card game, and since Nanami lost, she had to confess to a boy tomorrow after school and go out with him for a month. Not only Nanami, but Youshin was also shocked by that punishment. He usually would grab his pencil case and go home immediately, but he heard their fascinating convo. Nanami found her punishment pretty unacceptable. Meanwhile, Youshin was looking at her legs. The other girls thought she just didn't want to accept the game's punishment by saying so. But playing with people's feelings in such a way was something that she would never do, as confessing was something that should be taken more seriously, and it must be with someone she truly loves. The girls with black hair teased her for not having a boyfriend even though she had the most confessions of any of them, but they were kind of rude. She said that they even confessed to her while looking at her body. Youshin was watching them, wondering how she hadn't got a boyfriend. The girls were also concerned that she would be attacked by some weirdo. They were still trying to convince her to date some other boys to get used to them. Even if they break up, they would be delighted since they could go out with Nanami. They sure would if they didn't know, but if they did, he wondered what kind of misery awaited them after that. Nanami was a well-known and impregnable girl who had turned down numerous men. Dating her would get lots of envious gazes, which Youshin could not bear if it was him. The girls were still forcing her to do the punishment, and Nanami couldn't refuse anymore. The girls then wanted her to declare her feelings to Misumai Youshin, who was the quietest guy in their class. Youshin was right there at the door and was stunned when he heard them. Nanami expected to give it a try but didn't know how to do it. The girls suggested inviting him to the back of the school and telling him she liked him. At night, Youshin was at his home. He didn't have any friends at school but had a lot of online friends whom he could count, and Nanami was one of them. When he told him about what he had heard, he told him to accept her confession and go on a date with her. Just as she was getting used to boys, he could use that chance to get used to girls too. However, Peach didn't think it was okay to play with people's feelings like such and told him to refuse. She told him to simply say no, as it was only a confession. Nanami said that even if he declined, there would most likely be problems as she was popular. Rather than a guy who turned down a popular girl, a guy who was dumped by a popular girl was nonetheless better off in the eyes of people around. Nanami thought he should also see that as a chance. If they go out for a month, then throughout that month he must take a crack at making her fall in love with him. Precisely because he knows it was a punishment given so he could break up with her after she falls in love with him, and he could even go out on a date with her. He believed it would be more enjoyable to continue to go out with her. Youshin was sure it was because he was eagerly anticipating that stuff, which he didn't refuse. He wanted him to let him know the results. Youshin thought about what he said, and there was a possibility that he could be right. Before they left the chat, Nanami warned him to not desire her body out of the blue, which made him scold Nanami. The next day, Nanami came and asked if he could spare her sometime after school today. He hesitantly accepted and she left, saying that she would see him after school. He may seem like a loner, but he knew a lot about her. Her fashion style was a gal type. Her shirt collar was unbuttoned, leaving her cleavage exposed unsparingly. She was well known for her unconditional acceptance of everyone, which is why people started to think that they could have a chance with her. With that attitude, she had the impression that she was toying with boys. If an introvert like himself declined her confession, he wondered how many people would be hostile to him. Only the players, Nanami and her friends, knew that the game was punishment. Plus, there were a lot of people on her side. Thus, he had no authority to decline her. And he was still having a hard time believing that she wasn't used to men. He thought that she could have any guy she wanted, but no one stood a chance. That Gap style sounded charming to him, and it turned out that he was easily tempted by her as well. He takes a look at her while thinking about her confession. After school, they went to the back of the school. She started the conversation by thanking him for coming and asking if he had any idea what she was about to say. Youshin said that he had no idea why he was invited there, and if it was about money, he stated that he didn't have one. She seemed pretty annoyed after that. She seemed unaware that he knew about the punishment. She started to mumble something while her face was turning red. From what Youshin remembered, it was better to look up instead of looking at breasts or legs, so he tried to look up. While Nanami was saying that she had a crush on her, he saw that a girl was about to pour water on her head, and before he could answer her confession, Youshin pushes her out the way and held her as she fell to the ground while he was on top of him. She was about to misunderstand the situation, but then realized that he made it to keep her to get wet. Since the bucket hit her head, he fainted and opened his eyes at the nurse's room. He didn't understand why he was in a place like that, and then recalled the memory of him seeing a bucket poking out the window. He knew a lot of folks toss water from there when they clean up. He panicked and ran to cover her, and after that something heavy fell on him. When he was wondering what happened, Nanami came and was glad to see him awake. He tried to stand up and apologized for giving her the trouble to bring him there by herself. She told him to go back to lying down and asked if his injuries were okay. He stated that there was nothing to worry about and that he would be alright. She seemed quite happy by that. He then asked about her and she said that she was doing okay thanks to him. She was relieved that he wasn't hurt. She then asked him to go back to bed as his body was half dressed. When he realized that he went straight back to bed, she commented on his athletic body and described him as a skinny man with a well-defined physique. They both got shy and couldn't even keep eye contact. The nurse came and asked why Nanami was blushing and teased her by saying she was using that place for romance. The nurse bought Youshin some fresh clothes and they closed the curtains to give him some privacy. While he was wearing his clothes, the nurse told him that he should be grateful to Nanami as she had been looking after him since he got there. When he left the nurse's room, Nanami was waiting for him outside, worrying and asking if he was okay. He stated that he was feeling better and thanked for her help, but she said that she should be the one who thanked her and expressed her gratitude for keeping her safe. While Youshin was saying that it wasn't a big deal, she wanted an answer for her confession. He remembered that he rushed up to her before he could answer. Nanami advised him to look her in the eyes when answering. He looked right into her eyes and said that if she didn't mind him becoming her, he would gladly accept. Nanami seemed pretty happy, and not a second later, she seemed like something was bothering her. She hesitantly said that since they were going to be a couple now, he could call her Nanami, and she was going to call him Youshin. In his head, he wasn't comfortable addressing girls by their names, but he accepted and extended his hand toward her to shake hands. Nanami smiled, held his hand, and said that it was nice to meet him. Her smile was like a field of blooming flowers to Youshin. He might be interpreting it wrong when she showed it to him, but he reminded himself that he shouldn't forget that this was only a penalty for her game. While they were holding hands, the nurse was there watching them and said that she walked into something good this time. They immediately stopped holding hands and looked away in shame. The nurse told them to have a high school appropriate relationship and to use protection if they were going to do something. As Nanami's face turned countless shades of red at her sentence, Youshin said that he shouldn't say such things as they were only in high school. But it was actually quite the opposite, as it was precisely because they were in high school that they needed proper education about that issue. When they were at that age when they wanted to do stuff that they were told not to do, it was important to inform them about that stuff. As he was feeling better now, the nurse sent them. It was extremely unlikely that things would get there as they would only be dating for a month. But still, he decided to save the warning in his mind to the advice from Nanami. While they were walking, no one was speaking. They couldn't even keep eye contact properly. Youshin was thinking about what he was supposed to talk about when he went home together with a girl, and decided to ask Nanami what to do in a situation like that. He tried to start a conversation about the weather, but she seemed even more nervous. He then questioned if Nanami was also feeling nervous. She said that they should exchange contact info like phone numbers or usernames. She then wondered if he had any apps that he used. He said that he didn't really use them, but he had some. She wondered why he wasn't using them, and he said that he got news and free items for following official game accounts and that sort of thing, and this somehow made her smile. He asked if he said something funny, and she said that she was happy because she was his first contact. She then asked if he knew how to add new contact, and he asked for a second to do it. After that, he saved her number and everything seemed working. He thought she wouldn't be up for exchanging info at all since that whole thing was a dare, but he was wrong after all. He looked at her while thinking how he doesn't get women. When they arrived at the station, Youshin said that he was taking line 2 to go home, and it seemed that they were going to opposite sides. She waved goodbye to him while wishing to see him tomorrow, and they parted ways. He thought it was probably his imagination, but she seemed a little sad despite the smile on her face. He wondered if it was because the confession was on a dare. When he got home, he immediately went to his computer to talk about his day. Nanami said that he didn't expect something like that to happen and wondered if he was a destined hero or something. Youshin wanted to talk about what to do when they were walking as he had a pretty tough time. Boren didn't approve of his way of relying on him, but in those situations he advised that rather than talking about himself, he should ask her about things she likes. That seemed pretty helpful, and he promised to do it from tomorrow. Meanwhile, Peach seemed pretty quiet. She didn't think there was any way that this would go well and told him to break up with her before he got hurt. Nanami told her to not worry so much as they had just started dating. They just have to wait and see what happens. Plus, it was a little late now, so they have to support him. He had an idea. Now that he had accepted the confession and he was going out with her, they should set a goal for that week. Today's aim was to have him hold hands with her by the end of the week. But there were only 2 days left and they shook hands today, so he wanted to consider that as holding hands. But he didn't count that. Nanami said that he was overthinking it, and reminded him that he had until Friday to work to get her to like her. It was easy to say for him, but he thought it was too much for him. Then his phone buzzed and it was a message from Nanami. His heart started to pound a little too hard as he didn't think he would get a message from her on the first day. Nanami said that since they were going out now, they should walk to school together starting tomorrow. She asked if it was okay to meet at the train station at 7:30. Youshin didn't know what to do, and wondered if she knew that he read the message now that he opened it. He panicked as he should be responding soon because it would be weird if he didn't, but in the meantime, he didn't know what to say. He remembered what Nanami said to him and decided to go straight to the point. He said that he would be happy to walk with her to school and the time was fine by him. His response felt extremely stiff, but that was the best he could do. He wondered what she would think of it and saw that she read his message. She responded in a second by saying she was also looking forward to it too. He immediately went to Nanami to inform him that he got a message from her. Nanami said that he must be at the meeting place 30 minutes before the meeting time. Arriving a little early was much better than being late. Besides, he should be wanting to see his lovely girlfriend as soon as possible. Youshin still couldn't believe that Nanami was really his girlfriend, even if it was just for 1 month. Nanami again reminded him that he needed to get her to like him from here on out, so he had to put her first. Until now, he would prioritize his games over everything, and he wondered if he would be able to change his priorities so suddenly. He concluded that there was no turning back now, so he dedicated himself to do his best. He said that he would head out early tomorrow, so he was off to bed for the night. They told him to be careful and he left the chat. He was looking at the messages he got from Nanami while still thinking about how she was his girlfriend, and Nanami didn't seem to be doing anything different. The next day, she was on her way to attend her class and was climbing the school stairs when a boy approached her and asked her to take their relationship to the next level. However, he was focused on her body, and this made Nanami feel extremely uncomfortable. She politely declined his proposal and walked away. Later, while descending the stairs, she noticed Youshin engrossed in his phone. His lack of interest in her body made her admire him, and she wished every boy would be like him. Their friends were worried about her phobia and suggested a dare so that she could get a bit more used to guys and keep herself safe in the future. She had to confess to him and go out with him for a month. She had ultimately decided to go through with it and realized again that the decision was the lowest of low. Still, she got nervous, but it wasn't her own nervousness that surprised her the most. Youshin looked into her eyes, and only her eyes, not any other part of her body, which made her think that he was different and the others were perverts. When she confessed her love and he jumped on her without saying anything, she thought she was wrong and he was just like the other guys, or maybe even worse. But then she realized that he was just protecting her. When Youshin passed out on the floor, she immediately went to ask for help. When they got to the nurse's room, she covered his half-naked body while thinking about how he had a nicer body than she could have ever imagined. The nurse told her that it was going to be alright and she shouldn't be worrying so much. When he woke up and she reminded him about the confession she made, he looked right into her eyes and accepted. Even though it was just a dare, she was surprised at herself for feeling so happy that he said yes, and she was overcome with joy and guilt. While they were on their way to the train station, she couldn't find the words to talk to him, probably because of her growing sense of guilt or from feeling nervous. She felt nervous as she was being silent on top of doing something cruel. She then managed to ask him to exchange contact info, and they did. But even that brief exchange made her so happy. Sometime later, she got back home while still in a daze. In her bed, she was thinking about how cool he was. Of course, her friends were curious to know how it all went. She then looked at Youshin's profile picture and wondered if the character in his icon was from some kind of anime, and if he liked girls that looked like that. She wondered if she should braid her hair too, like the girl in his icon, and then decided to message him. He looked at her message so quickly, and when he responded, she was very moved by him. She wasn't sure if those feelings were because she really was beginning to like him. A mixture of bewilderment, guilt, and a hint of happiness swirled inside her. At 6:30, Youshin was waiting for his girlfriend. He came an hour earlier to make sure he wasn't making her wait. However, Nanami was already there waiting for him. He checked his phone to see if he had gotten the wrong time, but he wasn't. He runs towards her while apologizing. Nanami was surprised to see him as he was a bit earlier than she expected. He said that he had a small thing to take care of. She smiled and wished a good morning to him. He blushed a little while, trying not to catch in the moment since it was all because of a punishment game. Nanami stated her surprise when she saw him coming early. He said that it was his first time meeting a girl, so he got pretty nervous. Nanami seemed pleased by that and said that thanks to that, they were able to see each other quickly. He then noticed that Nanami braided her hair, making him wonder if he had seen that hairstyle before. He then remembered that no matter how small, he had to compliment her, so he said that her hair looked good on her. She seemed pretty excited to hear that and said she was happy to hear that. She mentioned that she was relieved because she wanted to try that hairstyle for him. He wondered what she meant by that, and she showed the character in his icon and wanted to confirm that he likes that kind of hairstyle. He panicked and thought he made a mistake, but she said that it wasn't weird or anything as she watched anime movies too. She then asked again if the hairstyle was cute, and there was no way he could deny that. He was relieved that he successfully told her that she was cute on the perfect day while they were walking. She then stooped and told him that they should hold hands on the way. He was surprised and shuddered a little. She asked if he didn't want to, but it wasn't like that, he was just excited. He even accidentally shook her hand instead of holding it. The goal Nanami set for him was cleared on the very first day. The people were all looking at them while they were walking. Nanami pointed out that they were all talking about them. When he said that they were probably feeling sorry for her for having a bear with someone like him, which was not the reaction she wanted. She told him strictly to stop using the words someone like him, as he was her boyfriend now and he looked cool yesterday. Youshin's heart started to pound as he wondered if she was going that far for a punishment game. When she suggested having a relationship on an equal footing, he thought that she wanted it to look like the ideal relationship since they were simulating. They apologized to each other and he wondered if it was about the rumor or that punishment game relationship. If he told her he knew, he wondered what face she would make. Instead of telling the truth, he decided to poke her cheek. Her face was all red and she couldn't understand what was happening as she wasn't expecting something like that from him all of a sudden. He said that she asked to be equals and asked if it was unpleasant. She said that it wasn't because it was unpleasant, but he startled her. She tried to put together the words but couldn't explain it well. When they entered the class, Nanami was clinging to Youshin. Her friends came and teased her and congratulated her. They were the ones who came up with that punishment game, so he thought they would tease them more. The other classmates approached Nanami and started to ask why she was together with him or they were having fun. She said that she confessed to Youshin yesterday. They were all taken aback by her words. Nanami's friends Hatsumi and Ayumi helped them to distract the attention they were getting. He thanked them. However, Nanami seemed jealous as he called them by their first name all of a sudden. Before he could explain, Hatsumi guessed that it was because he didn't know their family names, which was true. They then introduced themselves as Odafuku Hatsumi and Kamuinai Ayumi. He apologized for calling them by their names, but they seemed fine with it. The girls then reminded Nanami that she had something to tell him. She hesitantly asked if he planned anything for lunch. She was going to go to the cafeteria, and she made a two-person bento and asked if he would like to eat it together. He happily accepted. He thought he may have been mistaken on how she took that punishment game. At lunch, she gave him the bento she made, and he asked if that was why she woke up so early. She approved her, and he thanked her for going through that trouble. Youshin was pretty uncomfortable because people were looking as if they were watching a show. Thinking that it was something he had to deal with, he decided to just eat without caring what others would say. He tasted the bento and found it delicious. He said that even though the onigiris were small, they were so cute. She stated that it was because her hands were pretty small, so they ended up being that size. Youshin realized that she made the onigiris with her thin fingers and got shy. They finished all the food and he thanked them for the meal. He complimented her cooking skills and she said that she secretly made more today. Youshin could feel the other boys' jealous glares and felt extremely nervous. Then his belly growled. Nanami apologized as she thought her bento wasn't enough for a boy and got pretty awkward. She then offered some carriage to him. Since this action clearly showed that she wanted to feed it to him with her own hands, and since he had no other way, Youshin opened his mouth and allowed Nanami to feed it to him. They got shy, and she mentioned that they often do that with Hatsumi and the others. Nanami suggested buying a bento after school as he couldn't eat his fill at lunch, considering it as an after-school date. Meanwhile, the other boys were looking at him like they were about to kill him. Little did they know they don't stand a chance against our boy. Eventually, they were going to go buy a bento box. With all of those bloodthirsty gazes from that time during lunch break, he couldn't imagine how things could have turned out. Nanami noticed that he seemed a bit down and thought that he didn't want to hold hands with a bad person like her. He immediately told her that she was mistaken, and he was glad to be holding hands with her. She wondered if he was forcing himself, but he said that he didn't need to force himself, which made her happy. At the mall, they were picking some bento boxes and Nanami said that they looked like newlyweds. He got shy but agreed with her. She didn't want him to force himself to agree, but he didn't mean to sound like that as he was just really happy. She smiled and teased him. After a while, they decided on a bento box and she was about to buy it for him, but he said that he should pay as he was the one who would be using it. He wanted her to let him pay the material's cost at least, but she refused. She said that she wanted to do something for the one she loved and there was no reason for her to let him pay. However, he insisted on buying it as he didn't want to look like a kept man, and it wasn't good to rely on Nanami for everything. She eventually gave up and let him pay. After he bought the box, he handed it over to her and she felt like receiving a present. He got pretty embarrassed and said that he would be in her care tomorrow too. While they were walking, Nanami asked what he would like in his bento tomorrow. He said that a hamburger would be nice and she asked if he likes peppers. He said that he was bad with strong-smelling things like pepper. She said that she was also like him too, but since it's her cooking, he would eat it anyway. He said that if it was Nanami's cooking, he would eat anything. This made her giggle. At night, while playing games with his friends, he told them what happened that day and said that before they left, she said she would call him tonight, but he wasn't able to tell her that he knew about the punishment game. Nanami said that he didn't think he would be able to go to school together and hold hands within the same week. Not only that, they even ate her handmade bento together. He He said that the punishment game was for her to become accustomed to guys, and wondered if they were not using him for their simulation. Nanami said that if he started going out thanks to a confession from a punishment game, it would usually become a bit businesslike. She could have said that she was forced to go out with him, and told him to not get too carried away and don't talk to her in the school. He didn't agree with him as she wasn't a person like that, and Nanami said that he listened to what he said and now he can't do anything, as he was already head over heels for her. Then Peach interrupted and told him to break up with her as she just enjoys toying with him in her opinion. But Nanami said that there was no need to worry so much. Nanami then asked if he had given her his thanks for that meal, and he realized that he didn't. He did thank her, of course, but he wanted to at least pay for the materials cost, but she refused, so he would like to give her something in return. Nanami suggested giving her some sweets because it was better to return the favor with something different. This idea didn't even cross his mind as he was too nervous and felt pathetic to realize it only after being told. Nanami decided that his next week's mission was asking her out on a date this Saturday. That seemed impossible for him, and he already started to stress out about how to do it. Nanami advised him to take her out to see a movie as a thank you for the bento. He was right. At that rate, Youshin would feel guilty for giving her nothing for the bento. Above all else, he felt like they were a far cry from what she called equals. He wanted to stay equal because it was a punishment game. He promised to do his best, and Nanami reminded him to ask about her hobbies and the things that she enjoys, so he could use it as a reference when picking a movie. It would be faster to try it out directly, so he decided to ask her out when she called him. After a while, he got the phone call he was expecting and opened it without making her wait. Nanami apologized for calling him at that hour as she was too focused on talking with Hatsumi and the others. She asked if she said anything weird today because it was her first time going out with a boy. He said that it was his first time too, and he was also anxious, but he enjoyed everything they did. Her voice was so close to Yushin's ears as if she was right next to him, so he got a little excited. She said that she thought he was the only one that was able to stay calm, and she felt like she was going around in circles. Yushin said that it wasn't the case and he was very serious. Plus, he was even thinking about how to thank her for it, so he gathered all his courage and asked her if she wanted to go watch a movie this Saturday. After a few seconds of silence, she said that she had already promised to go watch a movie with Hatsumi and the others on Saturday. He fell on the ground thinking how he picked the worst timing. Nanami said that if she had known that he was going to invite her, she would have called him first. Yosuhin was feeling crushed and it would be pointless if he didn't invite her now. He then asked if Sunday would be okay. She wondered if it was because he wanted to thank Bento and he approved. Nanami agreed to go on a date with him on Sunday, and before they hung up, he stated that he couldn't wait to hear about what she liked. Nanami was overwhelmed by the rush of emotions in her heart. She wasn't confident in her ability to communicate with boys, and her heart was pounding uncontrollably. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to contain her excitement. Although it was early, Youshin arrived promptly and immediately complimented her new haircut. She was thrilled that he found her cute. Nanami loved it when Youshin was shy and still couldn't believe they had unintentionally held hands. She was thinking about every single move she made. After recalling the memory of her feeding Youshin, she was embarrassed and decided to take back what she said next time. She then realized that it was an indirect kiss that made her face even more red from embarrassment. The thought of kissing Youshin came to her mind, and she didn't think there would be any way for that to happen as she was already so embarrassed by the indirect one. While thinking in her room, she realized that she had forgotten to prepare the bentos and went to the kitchen. While making the bentos, she was thinking about how quiet Youshin seemed, but he was also unexpected. When she told him that she had things on Saturday, she wasn't expecting him to invite her on Sunday instead. She didn't think he would be the type to do that kind of thing. She was just thrilled. She wanted to know more about him and do a lot of things together, like drinking tapioca together, but she doubted Youshin would drink that kind of thing. And someday maybe she could go to his house, but even when she thought about that, she got pretty nervous. If they keep going out, there will be many other things for them to do, like going to the sea and some festivals together. She could think about many other activities for them to do in the future. But a month was too short for them to try out different things together. She recalled what her friends said, and it seemed like her opinion had changed. Then she remembered that her friends found her easy, and wondered if she really was. She tried to focus on some other things, but couldn't stop her tears because of the thought of Youshin finding out she confessed to him because of a punishment game, and started to hate her. However, she knew she couldn't refute what they said as she was always thinking about Youshin. First off, she didn't want him to get upset, so she decided to change things regularly. Since he wasn't there, she couldn't get his opinions, so she decided to do her best to make Youshin fall deeply in love with her. She was going to use his stomach to go to his heart and then dreamed about kissing him even though kissing was still embarrassing. Even though she thought she was the worst for doing such a thing, even if Youshin discovered it was all part of a punishment game, she was sure he would find a way to somehow forgive her. So before that happened, She was going to make him completely fall for her. She then continued to make bento for Youshin. The next day, Youshin was 30 minutes early and thought Nanami wouldn't have to wait. However, someone poked on his cheek and it was Nanami greeting him. When Youshin said that she surprised him, she mentioned that he did the same yesterday, so they were now even. He didn't have a choice but to agree when she put it that way. While she was talking about how the whole reason she came early was because she wanted to see him, he noticed her side ponytails. He hesitantly commented that her hair looked great on her and she was cute. She thanked him with a big smile on her face and said that she gave him the right to hold her hand and eat the bento she made for him today. With much appreciation, he held her hand and they started to walk. At school, some students were gathered around the basketball team, and while they were praising that one player, he noticed that Nanami and Youshin were walking together. He seemed annoyed, but when the girl asked if something was wrong, he didn't say anything. While they were changing their shoes, Youshin apologized for yesterday as he ended up calling her without giving proper heads up. When she didn't seem to understand what he meant by that, he explained that he was so excited about Sunday's date that he ended up calling her yesterday. The excitement even overpowered his shyness. Nanami was fine with that. It was true that she wasn't used to boys and they still scared her a little, but his call made her really happy. Youshin wondered if the reason she was in such a good mood was because of his call. Suddenly Nanami realized that she had never told him that she wasn't used to boys. He couldn't notice that she had never told him directly, he just happened to hear them while they were talking. He tried to find something to get him out of that situation. He mentioned that she said it was the first time she went out with a boy yesterday, so he thought she may not be used to boys or something. She not only believed him, she also found him very cute. He offered to go then and they started to walk together while he was wondering why Nanami was so bad with boys. Someone as cute as her should be able to get plenty of pretendants. He started to think about the possible things that could happen to her to cause something like that. Even her friends were worried, which was why he was chosen as her training partner. Seeing him getting lost in his thoughts, Nanami apologized for making him worry and said that it wasn't a big deal. She said that she always had difficulties with them or she felt like there was a good reason, but she couldn't seem to remember. Since she didn't remember, she considered it unimportant, which was surprising for him. She said that most guys were pretty nasty around middle school and she must have started unconsciously developing some difficulties dealing with them because of that. When she was in the 6th grade, she started to feel scared around them out of nowhere. Youshin claimed in his mind that she must have seen so many boys she couldn't remember as she was so pretty. He then wondered how she guessed what he was thinking. She said that it was pretty obvious, and even though they had only been dating for 3 days, she was his girlfriend. Youshin got so embarrassed and started thinking about what kind of face he should be making when he told her that he was there that day and knew all that was just a punishment game, but then decided that he could not let her know. In the next chapter, the boy who was on the basketball team asks Nanami for her time to ask her about who the hell was that guy Youshin next to her. A few seconds of silence appeared, and then Nanami, in a strict manner, told him that he was being a bit too stubborn. Her words made him angrier and he started to sweat. The boy was Shibetsu Shuimo, and he was a famous basketball player who was also his team's captain, and as far as Youshin remembered, he was rejected by Nanami. Shuimo stated that he was not giving up on her and asked Youshin to introduce himself. He stood up and introduced himself as Nanami's current boyfriend with a firm manner. Since he was standing up, he realized that he was surprisingly huge. He didn't want to get everyone's attention, so he asked to move to the cafeteria. They sat at a table and Youshin started to eat his bento, but he couldn't enjoy the taste in that kind of situation. Shuimo asked if the bento was made by Nanami, and if so, he wanted to have a bite, but Youshin immediately understood that and finished the whole bento in a second. While Shuimo was getting annoyed at him, he told Nanami how good her cooking was, and she said that she was glad that he liked it. Seeing them smiling at each other, Shuimo got more furious and challenged Youshin to a duel. If Shuimo won, Youshin would have to hand over Nanami to him, as he said. However, Youshin carelessly said that he didn't want that. He tried to tease Youshin and called him a coward for running away from a challenge, and didn't think he deserved Nanami, but she denied that and firmly told him to not call her Nanami as the only one who could be her boyfriend, Youshin. He was still in denial and tried to convince her that Youshin was a pathetic man, but he interrupted and said that Nanami's feelings come first, and to wager someone's girlfriend in a duel like that was not good. He pointed out that there was no reason to have a duel as he had already been rejected by her. He seemed pretty offended by his words and told him to stop reminding him of that. Youshin continued to scold him and said that even if he wasn't happy that they were together, they would continue going out with each other, and for him to treat Nanami like an object was the main reason he wouldn't agree to any of the things he said. Youshin decided that the talk was over and they stood up and started to walk away while Shuimo was still trying to prove that he was better than Youshin and even insulted him. That was the last straw for Nanami and told him to stop insulting him and yelled in his face that Youshin was far better than a person like him, and she was done dealing with guys like Shuimo. He fell on his knees feeling dizzy after he got insulted by his crush. But Nanami was not done yet. She said that he was looking at her breast for his whole proposal, unlike Youshin, who would never do something like that. She turned around and was about to go when Shuimo tried to reach out to her skirt. However, Youshin stopped and held his arm and told him that if he continued to act like that, Nanami would hate him. Shoimo didn't want him to use logic and just fight with him, as he was only capable of doing that. He was somehow pretty sure Nanami would understand if he won and begged Youshin to give him a chance. Youshin seemed like he was sick of him, so he asked what kind of duel he wanted. Shoimo offered to go with a 1st to 10 three-pointer, which was a tradition in his club. Youshin's only knowledge about basketball came from the mange he had read, so he couldn't help it. But if he didn't do it, he knew Shoimo would come back tomorrow, so he accepted. Nanami wasn't sure it was a good idea, and asked if he was sure. He said that the way Shoimo treated Nanami like an object made him quite mad. Nanami was surprised but got anxious because of the possibility of him losing Shoimo. Youshin comforted her that it was fine and he would find a way somehow. Nanami smiled and stated her belief in him. Youshin asked Shoimo if he was fine with that duel, and when he approved, Youshin said that he asked that he get 3 handicaps as he was just a beginner. Shoimo was pretty sure about himself and said that whatever handicap he had, there was no way he would lose in basketball. In the next scene, Hatsumi and Ayumi came to Nanami to ask what was up in the gym, as there was a lot of noise. They then asked Shoimo while Youshin was behind him, waiting for the match to start in nervousness. Nanami was also there and she ignored Shoimo and went to Youshin while Shoimo was telling her to wait for him. Hatsumi and Ayumi told Shoimo to not be too sad and then left to see Youshin too. They asked what was up with his appearance and asked if he was trying to join the basketball club. Before he could answer, they praised his fit body. Nanami seemed jealous and got in front of Youshin to tell the girls that they were staring at Youshin a bit too much. They were taken aback for a moment, then started to laugh. Youshin then explained that Shoimo challenged him to a match with Nanami as the prize. Hatsumi asked how he was planning to deal with that, as Shoimo was a basketball player. He said that they agreed on him having 3 handicaps, and first, he would let him witness 20 of his shots as an example. Shoimo explained that to do the three-pointer, he should keep the ball near his abdomen or chest, which he always thought he should keep above his head. Shoimo said that there was quite a bit of distance in a three-pointer, so he couldn't afford to put in too much power. He then showed how he should be keeping his hips, and how he should imagine himself drawing an arc with the ball. Secondly, as it was his first time doing a three-pointer, if he scored even once, it was his win. If Shoimo manages to score more than 8 times, he wins. The plan was to tire him out by making him exercise. But even then, Hatsumi found it pretty doubtful whether he could win. He knew that too, which was why the third one was the most important. No matter the outcome of the match, Nanami would be the one to decide who the winner was. They couldn't believe Shoimo was okay with that rule, but that wasn't surprising, as if they took away basketball from him, he was just a big idiot. Youshin would also hate it if Nanami's own will was disregarded. It was a good rule. Even though he was still not completely sure Nanami would choose him. The match started and Shoimo asked how confident he was, as he was so confident that Nanami would choose him once he won. Youshin didn't say anything, as he was thinking about how he wanted to look cool for a bit. In his first shot, he scored. Nanami's cheerful scream was heard by everyone, and she said she loved him. Youshin was about to make his other shot when realized that Nanami said she loved him, making him miss the score. He had missed them all since then, but he was able to keep face at least. But Shoimo was not missing any score, and he was 8. He was wondering what Nanami was thinking about Shoimo, then suddenly, she came and hugged Youshin. She made her decision and chose Youshin. Shoimo was still having a hard time believing Nanami could choose him. Youshin asked if he was considering Nanami as his girlfriend now. He was crying and sobbing with frustration. At night, Youshin talked about what happened today to Baron and Peach, and Baron was surprised that he got his okay. He finds handicaps unfair, as Nanami was the one deciding in the end while giggling. Youshin was glad that he accepted his defeat. Baron didn't think that boy would sway her, as Youshin and Nanami clearly loved each other. Peach interrupted and said that she would be overjoyed if that was the case, but she was still sure that Nanami was toying with him. She said that gals liked her toy with boys and then laughed at them behind their backs, while her friends simply looked like they were having fun. Youshin thanked Peach for worrying about him, but he didn't think his girlfriend was such a bad girl. He then thanked her, as he was able to cool off a bit thanks to her. He may have been too conceited, and he decided to make even more effort to show his girlfriend how much he loved her. After hearing him, Peach decided to log off. When she left, Baron wondered what was up with her, and Youshin thought he might have something that rubbed her the wrong way. Baron then asked if it was better for him to log off too, as he had a date coming up soon. When he logged off, Nanami texted him. She asked him if a kiss on the cheek would be a good reward for him. He looked at her message while blushing. His heart could not handle that. Nanami was taking a relaxing bath after she sent that crazy text to him. She really wanted to enjoy his reaction. Now that she thought about it, she would like if Shoimo could take after Youshin a little bit. Youshin was true to his desires and never listened to people. He even interrupted one of their few moments together. She wondered what was he aiming for by saying that, as she could decide for herself. Besides, in comparison, Youshin was far kinder and gentler, and also cared about her. However, looking at his reaction, Nanami thought he didn't want to flirt with her. It felt like she was boiling just thinking about it. She dreamed about him kissing her on the lips and got super shy only imagining it. Her sister came teasing her and told her that she was taking so long in the bath because she was grinning non-stop. She kicked her sister out of the bathroom and continued to grin as they were finally able to stay together with no one left to bother them. The next day, Shoimo greeted the two of them at the school. He stated how intimate they were and he got jealous. Nanami couldn't believe he was still talking with them after yesterday. Shoimo said that he had a little something to tell them, but she immediately refused to listen to him as she had enough. She wanted to go and started to walk, but Youshin was still standing there. She said that he was all ears for what he wanted to say if he didn't act like the last time. Shoimo said that they had nothing to worry about and said that his business was with Youshin. It did not look like he was lying and noticed that he had switched from Nanami to Barato, which could be his way of apologizing. Youshin asked what business he had with him, and he said that he wanted to be friends with him. Youshin asked what he meant by that. He explained that even if he had a handicap, Youshin won and he was clearly worthy of her. He respected him, so he thought they should be friends. Youshin whispered to Nanami's ears that he didn't think he would be like that when he won, and he seemed to be asking innocently too. Not a second later, Shoimo said that if they became friends, Nanami would be closer to him. It was hard for Youshin to hate him when he asked so frankly. Nanami got closer to him and whispered that Hatsumi and the others told her that Shoimo only specialized in basketball and he was woefully inept at everything else. She then mentioned that the only reason he was so popular was that he appealed to maternal instinct, then realized that she had done something pretty bold without thinking again. Youshin asked if he was also appealing to her maternal instincts and she refused. She said that he peeked at her breasts during his proposal and moreover, the look in his eyes was pretty obscene. Shoimo cleared his throat and asked again if he would be his friend. Youshin said that he was fine with it, but he had one condition. He stated that he would never hand him Nanami. Shoimo was surprised and understood that they really went well with each other and decided that it was time for him to look for his next love. Nanami didn't think he would admit that they went well with each other and her impression of him was improving. Then, Shoimo asked Youshin if he would be interested in joining the basketball club. Nanami was glad that Yushin's efforts were being recognized, but their time spent together would decrease. It was selfish of her to be thinking like that, but she couldn't help it. Youshin refused Shoimo's offer and his excuse was that he didn't want to decrease the time he could spend with Nanami. She was so happy that they were feeling the same thing. Shoimo said that he could always contact him online if he ever changed his mind and left them. They were finally alone, but Nanami thought he would have preferred to stay with Shoimo. Youshin apologized for making her uneasy, but she just wanted to be together with him. When she got silent, Youshin told her to not worry and promised to stop everyone who tried to snatch her away like some sort of prize. Nanami giggled at his red face, but her face was also because of embarrassment. She said that that was obvious, as there was not a single woman who wouldn't feel happy when their boyfriend was saying such cool lines. She clings to him as a reward for being so cool yesterday and today. She then remembered that they wouldn't be able to see each other tomorrow. Youshin told her to have fun with her friends. Nanami thought that Youshin must be looking forward to going together and prayed that he would be able to deal with the loneliness. As if he read her mind, Youshin said that he may be a bit lonely tomorrow because he wouldn't be able to see her, but he would be patiently looking forward to Sunday. Nanami smiled and said that she was also looking forward and promised to send him tons of messages tomorrow. In the next chapter, Youshin was playing games with Baron and Peach, but he seemed kind of distracted as he was making lots of mistakes that he usually doesn't. Baron asked if something happened and he said that it was because he was going on his first date tomorrow and he couldn't stop thinking about it. Peach told him to be careful, which made him think that she supported him for the first time. But then she said that she would crush his heart by calling him all kinds of stuff like dull, uninteresting, and the worst. Baron warned her to stop saying things like that, and Youshin said that he had everything ready so it should be fine. Baron slapped his shoulders and told him to not worry and to enjoy himself. He said that escorting her properly should raise his favorability, and he was pretty sure he already hit the max. Being with her would be enough for Youshin, but he didn't think that would be enough for Nanami. He knew that he had to be careful on that one. Baron asked what clothes he was going to wear on his big day, but he had never given a thought about that. He said that his clothes were mostly black and he had some comfortable loose trousers and some jeans. Baron suggested he take a photo of what he would wear tomorrow and show Shoimo. That sounded like a good idea and he left the chat to call Shoimo. Shoimo was glad that he was already relying on him and asked what he needed. Youshin asked if it would be okay to show him the clothes he was going to wear for his date tomorrow. Shoimo found it incredible that he counted on him for such things, and said that he would take a quick glance as he was on a break right now. Youshin didn't want to bother, but he didn't mind it at all. When Youshin sent the picture of his outfit, he was shocked. He yelled at him asking why he was covered in all black and if he was a serial killer or a ninja. Youshin said that he didn't remember sending him his underwear, but that was not what he meant. He asked if his all clothes were black and Youshin approved. He told him to go buy something else immediately, even if it was from a wholesale store. While on his way, Youshin was thinking about his reaction to his clothes. He was glad that Peach and Baron noticed and told him to ask Shoimo. While he was on the train, he realized how people were seeing him and got embarrassed that he didn't even have any clothes to go shopping. He thought that by going to tomorrow's destination, he could take a look in advance and get somewhat of an advantage. When he entered, he realized that the place didn't exist solely to play around after all. Youshin thought it would cost more to buy them separately, but ensembles were more expensive than he thought. He didn't have a part-time job, so it hurt him to spend that much. If he had known that earlier, he would gotten a part-time job. Then realized that Nanami also didn't have a part-time job and dreamed about working together with her. Then gave up as he would constantly make mistakes while looking at her. He quickly tried the things he bought. Shoimo told him to keep the skinny jeans and choose something refreshing for the top, so he tried on the shirt and the jacket. When he got his approval, he changed and left the changing room, then noticed that Autofuke and Kamonai were there. They were supposed to be there to see a movie, but he couldn't understand why they were at the clothing store. They seemed pretty uncomfortable as 3 men were hitting on them even though they said they all had boyfriends. One of them said that they were both 3, so it was perfect, which made Youshin realize that Nanami must be there too. He then saw the third person behind them but couldn't understand who she was. Her outfit looked pretty mature and tidy, and she even had glasses, which made her completely different from those 2. Since Nanami told him that there were only 3, he was confused. More importantly, he felt obligated to do something as he couldn't just show his face to her after abandoning her friends. But they didn't look like the type to hear him out, so he needed a backup. After thinking for a while, he found a plan. While the girls were still telling them to stop being pushy and let them go, Youshin came acting like he didn't know anything and asked if the 3 men were their friends. One of the men said that they were unrelated and told him to buzz off, while Youshin was embarrassed that they commented on his outfit. The man said that it wasn't his concern, so he should go away. He refused and looked at the mature-looking girl he didn't recognize. He then noticed her eyes, and even if he wasn't sure 100, he said that he was her boyfriend, and it was natural for him to stop that. They started to laugh at him and told him to take her and leave. They insulted her glasses and the way she dressed. Youshin said that he wouldn't let them do that as he could not leave her friends to them. One of them grabbed his collar and told him that he would hurt his girlfriend too if he didn't back up. Then the security came and asked him what he was doing. The security man asked him to come that way. When he tried to say that he wasn't doing anything, Youshin said that it was clear that he was assaulting him and asked if he called the police. He tried to defend himself, but Youshin said that he would definitely get arrested as he was grabbing him, and there were lots of witnesses. He asked the others if they were fine with being charged for the same thing, but they said that they were only following him along. They blamed everything on the one who grabbed Youshin and left the store immediately. The man was about to fight with Youshin, but then realized that the security was still there, and he let him go. The girls thanked Youshin for saving them. Youshin asked if everyone was okay and apologized for his acting all himself. Autofuke said that there was nothing to worry about, and if he didn't interrupt, she would punch them. Youshin asked if it was because she was strong, and she said that she often gets hit on when she looks like that. So for the sake of protecting herself, his boyfriend, whom she accidentally calls Big Brother, trained her. Youshin was confused and wondered what she meant, and she said that Hatsumi's boyfriend ended up being her stepbrother. Her stepbrother/boyfriend was the famous martial artist, Autofuke Suichiru. Youshin was shocked that her brother was her boyfriend, but she defended herself by saying that they weren't related by blood. Hatsumi looked very much in love and she looked straight out of a manga's pages. Youshin then asked if he had done something unnecessary to change the topic. Hatsumi said that if she came back with a single scratch, her boyfriend would start asking to escort her everywhere, so she was glad he came. Then the eyes turned to Nanami, who hadn't joined the conversation yet. Youshin was now sure that it was Nanami. Youshin asked if she was okay and she thanked him for helping them. She stated that she was so happy that he recognized her even in that outfit. She said that even though she likes gal fashion, she likes those sort of things too and often wear them when she goes out. She claimed that Youshin was disappointed seeing her like that, but he said that she looked so cute on those clothes. He pointed out his clothes and called himself a gloomy roach to lighten up the mood. Youshin said that when he first saw her, he thought it could be her sister, but the instant he saw her eyes, he thought maybe it was her, but he didn't have time to confirm. Hatsumi teased Nanami by saying how he recognized her instantly, but he said that he wasn't sure it was Nanami until they said it. He wondered if he disappointed her, but she said that she was glad Youshin was such a kind person who goes out of his way to help people in trouble. The girls again teased Nanami and asked if she wanted to go on a date, but Youshin said that he would gladly do so, but today was meant for the 3 to enjoy themselves. Plus, he didn't want to go out wearing that outfit and explained that he had come there to buy new clothes for tomorrow. Nanami couldn't believe he came to buy a new outfit for their dates and said that it was fine, but he found it embarrassing, so he didn't want to wear it right next to Nanami. Before they left, Nanami asked which Nanami he wanted to see tomorrow. He smiled and said that she would be happy as long as it was what Nanami wanted to wear. The next day, Youshin and Nanami appeared delighted to see each other, and she inquired about his opinion of her outfit. He felt embarrassed for not having said anything before she asked, and the only word that escaped his lips was, cute. That one word seemed enough for Nanami and she decided that it was time to go. When they arrived at the movie theater, he asked her if it would be okay to start a movie even though he hadn't watched any of the series entries. Nanami said that it would be fine and she got into it by starting a midway too, so he didn't need to watch everything. Upon checking the entries, he was surprised to find that there were more than 20. Although it was impossible to get up to date in just 2 days, Nanami suggested that they could stream everything together if Youshin was interested. Even if he wasn't, she would still love to do it. When Youshin thought about it, a month might be too short even if they were serious about it. He was still questioning why she was going that far for a punishment game. While he was deep in his thoughts, she called his name and asked if he preferred watching movies alone with a concerned face. He tried to focus on his date and said that it wasn't the case with a big smile on his face. He mentioned that he thought it would be hard to get into it with them being all alone. He said that it would take them over a month to finish them all, which made her shocked for some reason. He then realized that he got carried away thinking about the punishment game. Nanami smiled and said that even though it would take a long time to finish, they would still be together by the time they finished. He then asked nervously what they would do once they were done, and she said that it wasn't like anything would change. The series was always releasing new stuff. They had already decided on what they would be releasing next year, which meant for Youshin that they would always be together. Nanami then asked if he was honest that he never had a girlfriend before, as he returned the favor, and that outfit made him seem like he was used to that without knowing that he was going to come there with an all-black outfit. When he delivered what Shoimo said to him about his outfit, she giggled and teased him. When they arrived at the salon, Nanami asked Youshin if he was sure he didn't want her to pay at least half, but he insisted that he wanted to thank her for all the bentos she made him. He intended to cover all the expenses that day, and was determined to give his best shot. As the movie started, Youshin was looking forward to it. Nanami agreed with him, and at that moment, as the lights dimmed, Nanami appeared like the most beautiful person ever. While watching the movie, Youshin seemed to be quite engaged in it. He wondered if the scene was going to turn into an explicit one or something like that. As expected, he couldn't help but think about what Nanami must look like right now, and decided to take a glance at her. Then they happened to look at each other at the same moment. She said that it was kind of embarrassing, and this made them both giggle. Suddenly, she reached for his hand but hesitated to hold it. They both blushed and continued to watch the movie while holding hands. When the movie ended, Nanami seemed pretty amazed by it. She mentioned how it was not only touching, it even left her on the verge of tears. Youshin also enjoyed the movie, and as he expected, heroes were fighting to protect the world. Although they both had some scenes they didn't get, as they didn't see the previous movies. Nanami then pointed out that Youshin was watching her instead of the movie. He got embarrassed and tried to defend himself by saying that she was right next to him, so his eyes just happened to stare for a bit. Their next plan was to grab some food and go window shopping later, but then they noticed that it was already that late and everything was closed for the day. Nanami asked curiously about what he would do about his dinner, and he said that their parents were away, so he originally planned on eating out or getting something delivered, but it was too late for that now. Nanami found it pretty unhealthy, but he was not really great at cooking, so he had to. Nanami had an idea. She offered to come to his house and make him dinner. This made him very happy, but at the same time he was wondering how things had gone that far. At Yushin's home, Nanami had already started making dinner while he was helping her. Nanami wanted to put the filling in herself, but it took so long to wrap them up, so she really appreciated his help. She then pointed out that they looked like a married couple while making gyozas together, then enjoyed Yushin's face turning red. He tried not to lose focus on wrapping the gyozas. While making it, he mentioned how pretty Nanami was. It was now her time to blush. There was a pretty clear difference between his gyozas and hers. She said that his gyozas looked quite nice for the first time, and mentioned how her dad was overfilling them to the point where they started tearing. Now that they were done with the filling job, they started to fry them up, and after a while, the gyozas were ready. She said that they usually add some daikon to their sauce when they make gyozas at her place. He had never tried like that, but it looked good. They sat on the table facing each other, and even without his parents, Youshin felt like they were eating as a family, and this made him almost cry. Nanami was excited and told him to try it, and he took one. As expected from Nanami's cooking, it was delicious. Nanami seemed pleased by his statement and they continued eating. He finished his rice bowl immediately and stood up to go get some more, but then she stopped him and took the bowl to fill it. While she was putting the rice, Youshin looked at her and the tears he almost shed suddenly came back. She handed over the bowl and told him to make sure to eat a lot. After they ate, Nanami cleaned everything up and she thanked her. Since it was already late, he offered to walk her back home, but she refused. But he insisted, especially after that incident that happened yesterday, and stated that he couldn't let a girl go home alone at this kind of time. She gave up and accepted his offer. They started to walk together while holding hands. Nanami commented how they made a lot of gyozas, and he said that they would be a perfect side dish for their lunch at school tomorrow. She wondered if it would be okay. She told her mother they made gyozas at Hatsumi's place. Youshin unexpectedly said that he enjoyed watching movies and shopping with her, but his favorite was cooking together at the end. Before she could say something back, Youshin noticed that they were already in her neighborhood. Nanami thanked him for today and stated that she really enjoyed it. While they were talking, a tall man with glasses appeared behind Youshin. He was actually terrified by him but knew that he couldn't let him get any closer to Nanami. While brainstorming about what to do, the word "dad" came out of Nanami's mouth. The man took off his glasses and asked Nanami who the boy next to her was. Before Youshin could get over the shock, he found himself at Nanami's house. Nanami's mother and sister greeted them, and her sister seemed quite surprised as Nanami had never brought a boy at home. Youshin looked at her mother and assertive sister. She approached Youshin and said that he was perfect for Nanami as he was pretty full but didn't seem to be violent. Nanami didn't understand why she was saying all that stuff as she hadn't said anything yet. Her mother then said that the number of bento boxes did increase and she looked so happy while making those bentos. Also, she had never put on makeup when she went to her friends' houses. Nanami was covering her face because of the embarrassment when her dad came and told her mother to give them a break as they barely stepped in. Youshin suddenly bent and started to apologize to her father for bringing back his daughter that late. He said that this was all because of him and asked him to not be harsh on her. Nanami's father said that they would settle all of that inside and told him to leave that sort of talk for later. He also said that she should have come back with a car at this late hour. Youshin understood what he said and started to introduce himself confidently as Nanami's boyfriend. Nanami's mother, Tomoko, and sister Saya also introduced themselves. Her father then turned back and introduced himself as Nanami's father, Genichiro. They shot hands and went inside. Youshin and Nanami told about the situation and Genichiro only stated that he understood. There was an awkward silence between them. Genichiro broke the silence by saying he was only a bit angry and asked Nanami if she knew the reason. She thought he was mad because she didn't say she had a boyfriend, but as her father he was delighted to know she did, especially given her circumstances. Tomoko also stated that she was also delighted as her mother. That was a relief for both of them, but they wondered why Genichiro was mad. Genichiro explained that he was mad because she lied to them. This made Youshin remember the things she had also been hiding from him. Nanami seemed crushed, so Genichiro said that he was fine with her lying to go on a date, but he was wholly opposed to her spending the night at a boy's house. Tomoko interrupted to lighten the mood by saying that she looked so happy whenever she was preparing her bentos, so her father would let her go make him dinner if she had told them sooner. Genichiro did not say anything but didn't deny it either. But even the thought of that being an overnight stay made him furious. He tried to stay calm and change the topic. He stated his happiness about her daughter Nanami, who has always been so poor with boys, finally got herself a boyfriend. Her mother was also happy that she had a boyfriend, but Nanami started crying. She said that it was because of Genichiro, who always said weird things, which was why she didn't want to tell him about Youshin. Genichiro told her to calm down and explain as he didn't remember ever saying anything about her relationships. She reminded him about what he said last time. Her father stated that he wouldn't recognize them unless they were as strong as him. Youshin was speechless and then realized that this meant he had to beat Nanami's father, but there was no way he could beat her bro wrestles of a father. Suddenly, he wondered what was the point of going that far for a punishment game. She had the perfect excuse to call it off. Even though it had only been 1 week, he made so many memories with her, so he stood up and hugged her. He said that he would take on any challenge to not let them separate. Nanami was shocked but was also so happy. She hugged him and thanked him. When Tomoko said how jealous she was, Youshin realized that he was hugging Nanami in front of their parents, so he got embarrassed. Genichiro couldn't believe he said something like that as he didn't remember a thing. Not only Nanami, but Tomoko also knew that he said that on his own. He told them to give him a minute and said that he wasn't playing dumb or anything. Nanami said that around middle school when Hatsumi's brother and he were both drinking, he said it. He thought about it for a moment and accepted that he might have said that. When Nanami got furious again, he explained that he was simply trying to cheer Suichiro up. Apparently, he was worried about all the boys trying to woo his sister around that time, so he told him about having to beat him as a condition. It was true that Hatsumi was pretty popular, but she was still unsure if he really gave him that advice. He said that there was no way he would ever think about saying such a thing about them. She wanted to confirm that there was no need for Youshin to fight with him, and he swore on those muscles and his beloved wife. He said that he didn't train this hard to beat people, which made Youshin surprised. Youshin asked if he wasn't a martial artist or something, but he was just a salaryman. Youshin wondered why he was training that hard. He said that he liked to train in his free time, but he wasn't doing it like him. Now that he said that, Nanami compared to Yushin's abs to her father's, as Yushin's were a bit more defined than her father's. The tension in the room got super high. Genichiro, with the most horrifying look, asked how could his daughter have ever seen him naked. Nanami and Youshin immediately panicked and tried to explain that he got injured while trying to save Nanami and his uniform got wet, so she brought him to the school nurse. Genichiro made the decision to trust them on this occasion. Nonetheless, he reminded them that it could be challenging to believe Nanami if she continues to accumulate small lies. Tomoto added that she doesn't have to disclose everything, but it would be greatly appreciated if she could share details like dates with them. Genichiro then explained that Nanami's aversion to boys was the reason he started training and brought an album. Nanami started not feeling well around boys around 6th grade, which was when her father started to train. He opened the album and showed a picture of Nanami's childhood with himself. When they praised how cute she was, she got embarrassed. He said that Nanami was sort of bullied by the boys around elementary school as a result. An accident occurred, but she didn't seem to remember something like that. Genichiro said that it wasn't surprising that she didn't remember a thing because of the shock. Tomoto said that ever since the accident, she had a hard time handling boys. As such, her father began training to make sure he could always protect his daughter. Since then, she had been blessed with great friends and her aversion to boys started to weaken. And then, she finally brought home a boyfriend today. Youshin now understood what she meant when she said she couldn't remember. He stood up with confidence and swore to her father that from now on, he would always be there to protect Nanami. Whatever happened, he would always be by her side and never make her sad, as he said. He then asked him once again to grant them his blessing. Nanami was speechless while her mother and father were quite impressed. Genichiro seemed very happy and even called him a son-in-law. He stood up and gladly blessed their relationship. Youshin kind of blurted that out without thinking to try and appraise them, but as he expected, she mustn't have liked that one. But it was fine, as he would just have to make sure to keep her safe from now on, and that was not something that could change anything. To think that something like that would happen on their first date made him wonder if that was how it usually goes with it. When he turned to tell Nanami to do their best from now on, she was standing there like a trophy without saying anything. He worried if she was okay, and Genichiro said that what he said must have made her pretty happy, so it would take a while for her to come back to her senses. Genichiro offered to drive Youshin home since it was already late. Youshin expressed his gratitude for the information he received about Nanami earlier. Genichiro mentioned that he was the first one they talked about her past to. Youshin wondered if that was fine as they had just met today, and he said that he was quite confident in his ability to appraise people. He reached his hand to shake his and said that he would gladly entrust her to someone like Youshin. When he promised to protect Nanami, Youshin wasn't lying. However, he wasn't all that great. Just as she had been hiding the truth, he had not been very honest either. Nanami was at home checking her phone when she noticed that she had received a lot of messages. She messaged her friends back informing them that the date was a success and that lots of things had happened. However, she said that she would explain everything later. Nanami was surprised when her father found out about the date. At one point, she thought that they were done for as her father threatened to not recognize him if he couldn't beat him. Despite this unreasonable request, Youshin was willing to go through with it for Nanami's sake. Although he wasn't particularly strong, Nanami was impressed by how calm he remained throughout the situation. While she was getting into the bath, she recalled the night's events and realized that it was a proposal as her dad and mother said it too. She was pretty uneasy from that conversation earlier, but that really outshined everything else. She started to imagine how they could get married. Getting married right after graduating would be a bit premature, so they could live together in college. She thought about cuddling with him to sleep and then remembered that the last time she imagined something like that, her sister came in the bath. When her bath was over, she wrapped her body in a towel, and before she could dress up, her phone rang and it was Youshin. He asked if it was a good time and she said that she just got out of the bath, which made him shudder a little. He thanked her for today and said that he enjoyed himself. She seemed surprised as so many things happened at the end, but he was serious. He learned a lot about Nanami, so it was a win for him. It was getting late, but he really wanted to tell her that. Also, he wanted to go out next week, so he called to ask for another date. She gladly accepted, and they hung up after greeting each other. After she got dressed, her sister was at her door teasing her. As they were chatting, she expressed her admiration for Youshin and described him as both good and cute. She even went as far as wishing for a boyfriend like him. However, Nanami misinterpreted her statement and became defensive, telling her that she wouldn't allow her to have Youshin. She teased her for being head over heels for him. Their mother came and told them that it was already midnight and they had to wake up early tomorrow. Saya was about to complain, but she saw her mother's face and got the message. When she left, Nanami and Tomoto went to her room. It was time for mother-daughter love talk. Nanami didn't expect that from her mother, but it was actually her mother's dream to be able to talk about love with her daughter. She wanted to know every detail in order, so she started to talk about the time he saved her, when they went to buy a bento box, and the time he protected her from Shoimo. Without even realizing it, she started saying everything she liked about him. She wondered if she had become more open now that she had a boyfriend to boast about. When her mother asked who was the one to confess first, Nanami seemed quite nervous. She had been purposefully avoiding the topic because she might end up talking about the punishment. She barely said that she was the one to confess. Her mother found it odd that she had only talked about what she did after they started going out. She wondered what side of Youshin made her daughter fall for him and confess. Nanami was sweating in nervousness. She couldn't tell her it was a punishment game because she was scared they might hate her, without knowing who she referred to as they. Tomoto then wanted to confirm that Nanami wasn't thinking about today when her dad told her about lies earlier. Nanami was shocked that her mother noticed that, but it was her mother. She could see how worried her daughter was. To comfort her, she stated that she would always be on her side no matter what, so she could tell her about the whole story. Nanami's eyes teared up and she hugged her mother tightly before explaining what happened. She explained how they played a game with the girls, and as a punishment, she had to confess to Youshin. Tomoto now understood why she was avoiding telling the background of their dating story. Nanami seemed pretty anxious, so she held her hand and asked her calmly if she loved Youshin now. That question was not what she was expecting, but she confidently said that she really loved him and didn't want to lose him. She had never felt the way she felt with the other boys when she was around Youshin. Her mother embraced her and said that she did well telling her all that, as it must have been scary for her. Nanami wondered if her mother was angry. She said that it didn't matter what her motives were, because what was important now was that she did love that boy right now. However, she should made it right. On their 1-month anniversary, her mother advised her to be honest with him and apologize. Then it would be up to him to decide what he wants to do. Nanami was afraid, but she knew she could not go on like that. She decided to confess to him for real this time. She wasn't sure if it was appropriate to wait this long to apologize, but her mother reassured her that it was okay to take her time and prepare herself, given the scary situation. After making the decision, she instructed him to fulfill any requests from Youshin for the month, which sounded like a strange way of putting it. However, she realized that Nanami should try her best from now on to please Youshin. The following day in school, Youshin got summoned by his teacher for some unknown reason. He was confused as to why he was being called, but he still made his way to the staff room. The teacher mentioned that he just wanted to double-check something and inquired about Yushin's relationship with Barato. Youshin felt quite anxious and couldn't understand why the teacher would ask such a question. The teacher's question caught him off guard when she asked if she was bullying him. He quickly denied it and explained that they had a good relationship. The teacher responded that he did hear some rumors about that too. Youshin seemed embarrassed, so he apologized for disturbing him and then explained that she carried him to the infirmary while his head was bleeding, and it was only natural for him to be suspicious of Barato and him being in a relationship all of a sudden after something like that. It was true that he would have thought the same if he had only heard about the rumors. Besides, this was actually just a punishment game. But Youshin gathered his thoughts and told the teacher that they might not be alike. But even so, he disliked others thinking of Nanami in such a way, and Nanami was his gentle and beautiful girlfriend. The teacher was more surprised that Nanami influenced him in a way that he was able to say something like that, because he would have never said that before. After he left the teacher's room, he started walking to the classroom. Nanami said she would wait for him, so he didn't want her to wait any longer. When he was about to open the glass door, he heard Nanami's friends talk about him. They were surprised that Nanami fancied an introvert like Youshin. They said that the guys she rejected started acting weird since they learned she liked introverted guys. The other girl even questioned why she started going out with him. They assumed that she might be after his wallet. From what he was hearing, he was sure they weren't Otafuke or the others. He knew the teacher said it too, but he didn't realize that they looked so suspicious together. The girls seemed pretty confused because he wasn't tall, not athletic, and not that good looking either. Even though Youshin knew they were thinking this way about him, it still hurt his feelings. He knew he couldn't just stand there and he had to step in. But when he was about to do that, Nanami responded to the girls. She said that they didn't get it. From her point of view, if they compare him to all the other boys, he was by far the best she could wish for. Youshin was thinking about how pretty she looked, and while saying that, the girls started laughing. Nanami said that she was serious. All the boys up until now looked somewhat bland compared to Youshin. They thought she was joking. It was pretty pathetic of him, but he also agreed with the mean girls. She said that she wasn't joking, and then mentioned that he was pretty jacked. They all started blushing after she said that. She continued and stated that she couldn't think of any other man when he held her in his arms. Her attitude seemed to be changing slowly, so Youshin decided to step in. He entered the room and greeted Nanami. Nanami smiled at him and told him that he was late, so he should treat him to ice cream on the way back. He apologized for taking so long and promised to buy her ice cream. The mean girls seemed not so mean next to him now. Youshin and Nanami said goodbye to them and left the school. While they were opening their ice creams, Youshin asked why she started praising him all of a sudden. She responded that they didn't get how great he was, so she got a bit heated up. He thanked her and responded that he didn't get what was so great about him, but whatever that greatness may be, he was fine with Nanami being the only one who knew. He didn't really care about how great he was because he was fine as long as he was with Nanami. Suddenly, Nanami got down on her knee because she was so embarrassed. She said that he was way too smooth. Youshin realized what he just said and didn't deny otherwise. He said that she was the one who made that kind of face earlier. She defended herself by saying that she was just doing like her mother. Youshin was surprised that she also did that too. She said that she was screaming for him to come back quickly from the inside because of how embarrassed she was. Youshin was amazed that she did that for him and stated that he was really grateful she defended him. Suddenly, Nanami's face changed and she seemed like she wanted to tell him something but just couldn't. She eventually asked him if he wanted to get ice cream and changed the topic. If Yushin's intuition was right, it felt as if Nanami had become more proactive since that day. First off, the way they held hands on their way to school started being way more like how a couple would. He was quite baffled at how far they had come. When she asked if he didn't want that, he had no choice but to reply when she put it that way. There was no way he would refuse though. But that was not the biggest issue right now. One more thing, she started making handmade desserts for lunch too. That was a bit much, so he told her she didn't have to, but she told him that she was enjoying that. As such, he had to do his best to repay her on their next date. The biggest challenge was that she was trying to kiss him. But when he mentioned this to Shoimo, he was having a hard time understanding the issue here. He responded that there wasn't really an issue. Shoimo understood what he was trying to say. He said that it seemed like Nanami had been shooting her shot over and over again and her getting ahead was making him anxious. Youshin said that he felt bad for always being on the receiving side but didn't know what he should do. Shoimo told him that at times like these you have to slowly and carefully make a comeback. In short, he should be the one to kiss her. Youshin started freaking out after hearing that. Shoimo explained that that was the only way to turn the tables here. But of course it was easier said than done. That was impossible for him even in his wildest dreams. After that, he went to Nanami and apologized for canceling their lunch today. They all seemed pretty embarrassed when he came. He asked if there was something that happened, and they only told him that he would get it after school. He was sure that they told Nanami something because she couldn't even make eye contact with him. After school, Nanami asked if he would like to come with her to buy some things that her mother asked her to buy. Youshin accepted her offer, and then she asked if they should get some tapioca on their way back while they were at it. She said there was a store selling some at the mall. He thought that was what they were whispering and giggling. He took long to respond, so Nanami asked what he was thinking about, and he responded that he would be glad. She seemed happy that he accepted it. She then blushed and suggested getting a different flavor so that they could share. Now Youshin understood why they were giggling because that would practically mean they would kiss. At the tapioca shop, Youshin couldn't believe he was getting tapioca. It was his first time. He didn't want to line up to try it when it became popular and didn't have anyone to go with either. Nanami was glad that she was his first. This sentence made him cough like he was sick. He was a little dirty-minded for thinking like that. Nanami said that the taste was okay, but the best thing was how cute it looked. He thought it wasn't worth lining up for in the past, but as long as he was with Nanami, even those sorts of things feel enjoyable. When it was their turn, they picked out different topics and left the shop. When Youshin saw her so excited about her orange tapioca, he asked if it would be okay if he took a picture. Nanami was more than okay, and she posed for his picture. After taking her picture, Youshin was sure he was going to be changing his wallpaper to that. When Nanami saw the photo he took, she scolded him because she thought he was only going to take a picture of her tapioca, but she was way too prominent there. She didn't like it because that pose was not cute enough. Youshin responded that orange really complimented Nanami's beautiful appearance. She thought he was calling tapioca beautiful, but he corrected her. He said that he just wanted to take a picture of her and she looked super cute as she was. Nanami agreed to keep the picture but then got close to him, stating that she wanted to take a picture of him too. But then realized that it would be weird for her to not take a picture now. Youshin felt awkward because he had never done this before. Nanami smiled and grabbed his arm. She took them together and apparently that was her plan. Youshin suddenly remembered what Shoimo said to him and called Nanami. But she was doing something on her phone so she didn't look at him. Youshin took this chance to kiss her cheek. Nanami's face immediately got red and she seemed puzzled, so he barely explained that he thought taking pictures wasn't enough while they were on a date. She didn't say anything and got closer to him, but before she could do something, a woman and a man called Youshin. The woman asked who that young lady he was with. Nanami didn't know them, so she whispered to Youshin, asking if he knew them. From his reaction, it was clear that they were his mother and father. Youshin was surprised because they were both supposed to be working right now. He then noticed that they were holding hands. They explained that it had been a while since they last finished work at the same time, so they wanted to go on a shopping date. It wasn't the first time they were doing it, but Youshin had never noticed it before. He was also surprised that they were holding hands, but she said that it was only natural to hold hands with the one you love. More importantly, she asked how he kissed that lady on the cheek. His mother changed her whole mood and told Nanami that if Youshin was in any way forcing himself on her, she could rest assured she would take the proper measures needed to punish him. Youshin panicked and asked why this was the first thing she thought about. She responded that it was reasonable for her to think like that because she had never heard him talk about any girl before. Even so, it would be inconceivable for him to kiss her like that, even if he did have a female friend. He was about to correct them, but Nanami stopped him and explained that he wasn't forcing himself on her because they were going out. She also introduced herself. Youshin confirmed her and introduced her as his girlfriend. His mother thought about it for a moment, then asked if she was a rental girlfriend since he reads manga like that. Youshin once again was about to correct his mother, but there was no need for him as Nanami hugged him and established that she was his girlfriend. Youshin's mother seemed embarrassed about her reaction and wanted to hear more but didn't know what they should do with their staff. Regardless of what happened, she was also surprised that she lost her cool attitude like that. His father told his wife to calm down and suggested going to the food court together. Youshin asked Nanami if she was okay and she said that she was okay and was glad. Youshin asked the reason, and she said that it meant she got to be the one greeting his parents this time. She would rather wear some proper outfit to make a good impression, but there was nothing she could do about that. As they were walking, Youshin felt that she was nervous, so he held her hand and told her that it was going to be fine. He was sure they would understand how nice she was, regardless of what she was wearing. There was no need to worry because they were his parents. Besides, he promised to never leave her regardless of what they say. Nanami felt so relieved that she leaned on him and thanked him. That was right, Youshin was going to be sure to tell them she was not all looks and hoped that his parents would understand. In the next scene, they were finally facing each other. Yushin's mother first wanted to introduce themselves. Her name was Shinobu and Yushin's father's name was Akira. Nanami politely said nice to meet you and then introduced herself as Yushin's girlfriend once again. Suddenly, Shinobu and Akira started tearing up. Youshin asked why they were crying and they explained that their son, who never showed any interest in the opposite sex, was with a beautiful girl. Youshin asked them how they believed them so fast and told them to at least show some doubt instead of reacting like that. Shinobu didn't see any point in that because she wasn't angry when he kissed her and they were even holding hands. She then turned to Nanami and asked her to take care of him from here on out while bowing. Nanami panicked and asked them to raise their heads. She said that Youshin was wonderful and he was very nice. He always complimented the bentos she made for him, and that alone was enough to make her happy. They all seemed relieved and happy now. However, Shinobu asked about the bentos. Youshin started panicking because he hadn't told them since this was all supposed to be a secret. Youshin couldn't stand the glare Shinobu was giving him, so he had to explain to her. She was unpleased because they were also giving him money to pay for lunch. Youshin explained that he used them for dates instead. Nanami felt bad and asked them to not be mad at him because he was doing all of this for her. Akira responded that she was too good for their son and told Youshin to cherish her. Shinobu agreed and stated that they would not tolerate any fooling around. But Youshin had no intention of fooling around. He said that he swore to never make her sad and there was no way he would betray her like that. If that was the case, Shinobu gave them their blessings. She then asked Youshin if he could tell them a few things he liked about her since he claimed to like her because she could name at least a dozen things she liked about Akira at any given notice. Youshin said he would tell her even more, but he wanted to stop here for now because there were too many people around. She agreed and asked Nanami to take care of their son from now on. As they finished eating and drinking, Akira offered a ride to her house, and with that, he would be able to greet her parents while they were at it. Nanami didn't want to be a bother to them, but it was only natural for them to thank her for everything she had done. As expected from his parents, they knew it would be impolite not to ask that. Suddenly, Shinobu asked Nanami's number, and while they were exchanging their number, Akira informed Youshin that both his mother and he were going on an extended business trip starting tomorrow. They should be back in about a month and Youshin would be all alone in the meantime. Akira suggested using this time to improve his cooking. That sounded like a good idea because he did enjoy making those gyozas with Nanami after all. Only eating bread and cup noodles gets pretty tiring. They could even share if he made his bento himself. That would be his next goal. Nanami heard some of their conversation and asked if they would really be away starting tomorrow. When he confirmed her, she asked if she could come to their house and cook him dinner. When they went to Nanami's house, Nanami's mother said it was a big no-no. Nanami stood up and reminded her mother that she would support them. But that was different. Back when Nanami asked this question to Shinobu, she also stated that two teenagers spending the evening together in this day and age was a bit too much. Nanami said that it was fine because they handled it pretty well last time. Shinobu stared at Youshin after she heard her. Youshin had to confess that they had dinner together at home before. She started scolding her because it would be a big issue for her to stay even a few hours. Besides, she was also considering Nanami's parents. Nanami said that she would convince her parents, but Shinobu knew it wouldn't be easy. But she was still willing to go this far. Back to the present, Nanami's mother stated that she still cannot let two high schoolers spend the evening together like that. Youshin already knew this was too much. To be frank, Youshin knew there was no way he could keep himself in check if they spent every evening together. He didn't want to let his teacher down either. Nanami's mother stated that she would agree on one condition. She asked Yushin's parents if they would be away for a month and they confirmed her. Shinobu stated that it had been a long time since they had been so far apart, so they did think Youshin might feel lonely. Youshin didn't want them to take that seriously because he was aware that they were already working hard enough to provide for him. Nanami's mother then asked Nanami if she wanted to cook his dinner. Nanami agreed, and explained that it was because he was bad at cooking. She then took that back because that was wrong to say. She said that she wanted to cook for him, and that would be a great opportunity for him to improve his cooking skills. Youshin said he would be able to cook for her too. Youshin didn't realize how cute he was until he saw their parents tearing up. They hugged him while talking about how grown he was now. He was so embarrassed, but Nanami was looking at him like he was the coolest guy in the world. They would have a nice mood going on if they weren't here, but that was just way too embarrassing for him. Nanami's mother took everything into account and suggested the idea that Youshin could come to eat dinner at their house while his parents were away. But at the same time, he would also help Nanami make dinner. The kids seemed to like this idea, but his parents didn't want to impose themselves on her like that. Hearing that, Nanami's mother said they should find a good balance. Nanami's father came and suggested that he could pay for his food while he was here so he wouldn't be any burden to them. This sounded pretty doable, so Shinobu and Akira bowed to the father and asked if he could take care of their son. He laughed and told them to stop by to see how skilled those two fiancés had become when they were back. Yushin's parents seemed confused, so they said that it wasn't the first time Youshin had come here. Her father even quoted about what Youshin said to him, making them all embarrassed. Nanami wanted to change the topic and concluded that Youshin would be coming to their house, and while the adults talked, she grabbed him and told everyone that they would be going to her room. They all seemed okay with that, which made Youshin confused because how come they weren't okay with spending the evening together, but they let them be alone in her room? When they were in Nanami's room, Youshin noticed that her room was much bigger than his and it smelled really good. Nanami asked if he wanted to sit on her bed. He was shocked at first, but obeyed her. When he sat on the bed, Nanami sat next to him, but then she lay down on his leg. While he was shocked, Nanami pointed out that his thighs were so firm because of working out. She turned to her left and said that it felt like a memory of a foam pillow. Youshin was having a hard time focusing because she was lying on his pants and also facing the wrong side. But he had to bear with it. Nanami asked if he had been feeling lonely being alone all the time, and then told him that from now on he wouldn't have to be alone anymore. He responded that he might have felt lonely at the start, but it didn't affect him nowadays. He loves playing games in his room alone after all. She said that she would feel lonely if she was in his shoes. She then asked what game he was playing right now, and he said that he used his phone to chat with people and his PC to grind. It was about joining a team and having fun with your teammates. When Nanami heard that you could play mobile games on PC too, she wanted to try this game out and asked if he would mind her joining. Youshin responded that he would ask everyone and he was sure they must have some room to spare. She didn't want to bother him and his friends, but he said that it was okay. But still, she said that since they were his friends, she would like to meet them one day. Youshin wanted them to play together too. He then noticed Nanami's legs. Her skirt was so short, and if she kept moving her legs, it would be revealing. Nanami suddenly called him a pervert because of the kissing incident today. Youshin wanted to explain, but Nanami told him that she wasn't mad or anything, she was overjoyed. But getting found out by his parents really scared her, but she admitted that she wanted to do it herself. After she said that, there was a silence between them. The tension in the room increased, and she closed her eyes like she was waiting for a kiss. But then they got interrupted by her mother informing them that they were done. They escorted them to the door, and Shinobu thanked her parents for everything. When Nanami said that she was looking forward to tomorrow, her mother teased her by saying that they really did look like fiancés. At night, when Youshin logged in, Baron and Peach were wondering what he was up to since he took so long to log in. Baron asked what he needed help with now, and Peach said that she would like to hear what happened, especially how he managed to get this close to her in such a short time. Youshin said that he needed even more help now because he wasn't sure how he should act around her parents. Baron responded that a high schooler shouldn't even have to worry about that, and he didn't know how to help him with that. Peach said she wanted to help him out, seeing how happy he had been lately, but didn't know how to do that. Youshin noticed that Peach was helping out more after the date and was glad it would go back to the old days. Baron brainstormed some ideas to help him. He suggested getting close to her parents, but that method wouldn't be appropriate for his age. Alcohol was a no-go after all. Youshin asked how Baron managed to get close to his in-laws as a married person. He said that his father-in-law really loved alcohol, so all he had to do was drink with him. He wasn't really into that stuff, but he did his best to get his approval. At the end of the day, all he had to do was build a good relationship with them, but doing his best to get their approval was hard. He wished he would be like Baron. He guessed that it all depended on how much he loved the person in the end. Peach asked how often he was telling her he liked her. That was kind of embarrassing as he said, but then stated that he never really told her. Peach started scolding him because that was no good. Baron agreed and said that getting a girl's point of view was pretty nice for once. He asked if she was talking from experience, and she responded that she would like to hear her boyfriend say how much he loved her every day. She turned to Youshin and explained that even a message was enough if he couldn't tell her face to face, but he needed to tell her how much he loved her. Girls get worried if he doesn't. Baron excused himself for a moment. Youshin realized that she was going out with him because of that punishment game, but then decided to not let himself think like that. While the fact of the matter remains, it should be safe for him to assume the best. Otherwise, it was certain that he would make a fatal mistake down the road. He asked Peach what was making her so willing to help all of a sudden, and she responded that it was a girl's secret. However, hearing about the two of them made her realize that she had to move on too. Youshin was pretty impressed because it was hard to believe that she was in middle school. When he left the game, he attempted to find a message to which he could append, "I love you." His first try felt a little out of place, so he was going to try something else, but then accidentally only sent, "I love you," with no context. He tried to calm himself down and erase the message before she saw it, but when he looked at the message, she had already seen it. When Nanami saw the text, she immediately called him and asked if he sent that seriously. Youshin asked if she disliked it, and she explained that it wasn't because she didn't like it, she just wondered where this came from. Youshin said that he lacked experience since he had never been in a relationship before. So he asked his online friends for some advice, and they told him he should be telling her how much he loved her more. When he said that he wouldn't notice that if not for her advice, she asked if that was a girl's advice. He said that this advice came from a girl, but it was usually mostly from a married man. He felt sorry and then asked if she was mad. She started laughing because she got lots of advice from Hatsumi and Ayumi too. It did take her by surprise, but there was no need to worry about some lack of experience. Youshin apologized once again for bothering her, but she was glad that he told her. She then asked if he wanted to say it to her now. His voice stuttered and asked for some time at first. She waited patiently for him to be ready to vocalize what he said before. After a moment of preparation, Nanami finally heard him say, "I love you" to her, and she gladly replied to his feelings. That is the end of the recap at chapter 17.5. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.